private education is becoming a lot more popular in the last decade. With us tonight to talk about this is the superintendent of the Aletheia School. His name is Charles Moore, and he's going to tell us about private education and its pros and cons. Charles, welcome to Focus Delaware.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Charles, as I mentioned, we're well aware of the upsurge in private education recently. Why? Why do you think that is?
I think there are a number of reasons. In our area, probably many people would respond immediately, busing, but
of course.
I think that's oversimplified because throughout the country you find an upsurge in private education where busing's not a factor. And in the time that we have, we couldn't, of course, cover all the factors, at least as I see them, but there are quite a number of things. I want to make it clear that we don't consider our school, and I speak only for Aletheia School, a competitor to public school. Most of our people, including myself, came up through the public school system, and so we feel there's definitely a place for both. But a number of factors, of course busing being one in certain local situations, but there have been discipline problems sometimes in the public schools, and people have reacted to that. And of course there's been a lot of talk about the separation of church and state and getting religion out of public schools, and it's come to the point where you can talk about almost any character in history in the public schools except Jesus Christ, and if you mention him you have to do it very, very carefully, and you might be in trouble even then.
Might be subject to a lawsuit.
That's right.
Well then, let me see if I understand you. You're not a competitor, but perhaps an alternative.
That's right. We're trying to give the best possible education with Christian orientation at Aletheia.
Well now, what about the quality of education in religious schools? I mean, might not some schools suffer from budgeting, where the quality might suffer as a result? Maybe perhaps an overemphasis in some schools away from the basic reading, writing, arithmetic. Is that a problem?
I think it could be. Again, when you look at private schools and church-related schools, you look at a very broad spectrum as far as education is concerned. For example, private schools, church-related schools have an illustrious past. Our oldest educational institution, Harvard, started in 1636 as definitely a private church-related institution. And of course that's quite different from many schools today. For example, Bob Jones University in South Carolina. And private schools differ. And that's the reason I said I can only speak for Aletheia School, because I feel that in many ways we're unique, and that's the reason we exist.
Well now, let's take a look at the Aletheia School, and you can describe what we're about to see. Charles, you see through the monitor there. What are we seeing now? Is that the outside?
We're seeing the outside of the building from the front, and primarily a new multi-purpose auditorium gymnasium that we just completed a year ago. And I'm afraid here you're seeing me in my office. And our principal, Richard Duzan, who has his graduate work from the University of Delaware and taught 11 years in the Newark school system. School secretary, who, believe me, is very, very busy. And we're very proud of our hot lunch program, and here you see some of our kitchen workers serving hot lunch to the children. And I believe these are some of our preschool children. We have very large and very active daycare and preschool. And again, I think we get another view of our preschool, our daycare area.
Is your school at all denominational?
It's non-denominational, and only about 10% of our students come from the Church of Christ, which jointly occupies the building. Children on the playground. We have a nice fenced playground for the smaller children. And you see one of the older classes, possibly the 6th grade here. And again, I believe this is the 4th grade class. We've just completed a large addition to our building, and this is looking from the back, the old section, toward the multipurpose auditorium gymnasium. Daycare and kindergarten and offices are housed in the wing that you see in the foreground.
You go from kindergarten up to how high?
Through 8th grade.
Phil, are you a product of private or public education yourself?
Public.
Are you? And yourself?
Public education. In fact, I have 7 children who all attended the public schools in Newark.
Well, now what can a student expect to gain at Aletheia? Let's be particular now about your school.
All right. At Aletheia, we use basically the same textbooks that the public schools use in the Newark area. And we try to give the very best quality education, plus we teach them about God, and the Bible is a part of their curriculum. And they're not pressured. We don't try to indoctrinate through our teaching process, but they are exposed to biblical concepts.
Are religious students shielding from the real world?
Well, I don't think so. You know, in a sense, we shield children when we send them to school. Our children are subjected to just about every influence that a public school child would be, maybe on a little smaller scale because our student body is smaller, but they come from all walks of life, and they're involved in about everything that students would be anywhere. It's not that we're shielding, we just feel we're trying to add a dimension.
Does the school or private schools per se tend to be elitist?
I suppose they vary from one extreme to the other. We keep our tuition as low as possible and supplement it by fundraising activities in order to allow just almost any child who wants to attend to attend. We find a way.
You draw your students from all over Newcastle County or even beyond?
Yes, yes, even beyond. We have 2 buses. You saw one in the picture, and one of those buses runs about a 40-mile route in the morning.
Well, we're just about out of time, gentlemen. I want to thank both of you for coming on the show. Charles Moore, superintendent of the Aletheia School. Of course, Phil Wingate, an ex-vice president of the DuPont Company and author of the colorful DuPont Company. And, of course, Dennis Carey, who right now is down with the governor. And, of course, Helena Conowitz, who's going to finish out our show right after I tell you about next week's. Oh, by the way, we had some winners of the gift certificates. Dinner for 2 to Hilton, Tony Ann Cordruff. Lunch buffet for 2, Diane Warwick. And Sunday brunch for 2, Charles Baxter. I'll be sending you out those gift certificates.